given you the basic had, basic limit. And then so when the society developed, Islamic society as Quranic society, when they implement Quran as a constitution, before they start cutting hands or giving any punishment, the only 4 punishment God has given in the Quran for the qatl jurm, the qatl. Number 2, the mutiny, means going against the government, and the doing the sarqa, and zana. So he literally gave himself, he recommended, but he did open-ended. He did not specify define the sarqa and also define the punishment. So that is according to any society who developed Quran as a constitution and provide the basic necessities, food, shelter, education, medicine, everything. So then if somebody is mentally upset, or he has the habit of stealing, or he what we call kleptomanic. So if he's a kleptomanic and he repeatedly do that, then that means you don't cut their hand. Majority in Egypt and Pakistan, 50% of people are stealing. So you're gonna cut everybody's hand. So the society, what do you left with? Nothing. So what I'm saying is, like when in Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam story, when he came into the room, the girls were cutting their hands. Does not mean they chop their hand. They just make a little cut. So it was zakham, not cut. And nikala means God. Now right away God says nikala min Allah, means nikala means to put a stop on thing. Anybody who does act like that, you try to put a stop. How are you going to put a stop? Any law God is giving, in my understanding, at the end of the law, God uses 2 attributes of his. And those are the attribute has to be fulfilled before you apply that law. So the 2 attributes at the end of is Azizul Hakim. Aziz means the power of his, he can decide whatever punishment he can do. And Hakim means it has to be on hikmat, based on hikmat. So that means in a society, what you do is you provide education about that. Yu'allimul kitaba wal hikmah. You give them the knowledge and the education and the change their minds about that society, how you're going to live. We provide you everything. You don't have to steal. So basically, all these things has to be fulfilled before you even think giving a punishment to somebody. If, like in Hazrat Umar's time, when there was a famine, and he literally gave the permission in his time, Umar the Great, he said, from the ghalla, from all the material thing to eat, and whoever does steal should not be punished, because they know that they're all hungry, because it's like a famine. So he said no punishment if somebody steal. So that means there are not one thing, even though in the Quran at the time it says if a slave steals, punishment is half. If a normal person steals, punishment is full. If the ummahat, the wives of a prophet or anybody family member steals, punishment is double. So everything we have to put it in context to figure it out what is going to be the punishment, because punishment does not mean you have to just chop hand and chop the head. Means you have to take some measures, preventative measures, education, and you have to have a definition. If you define our istalahat of Quran, the majority of the problems of the society will be solved if you just define what it means. Because we don't define what is Islam, what is Momin, what is Sarka. We don't put a definition on it.
Yeah, that's
So
important.
this is the problem of our society. We have to define. When you say what is a kafir, define kafir. Nobody can define kafir. Every sect will define different. But Quran says, "Lam yahkum bima anzalallahu bima anzalallahu faulaika humul kafir." These are the people kafir who does not make a government according to the Quran. So this is how we have to define first what sarka means as a code of law. And that is the responsibility of the government. God is just giving you a limit. This is what you have to do. You have to put a stop on that act. That's all. Decide whatever the way you want to decide. That's my understanding. I'm just letting you know if any problem and if anybody has a question.
No, I think it is similar to the what Dr. Umar has explained.
Yeah, I think he's saying the same thing. Yeah.
Dr. Umar, what do you think?
I just want to emphasize. I think I see Sayyid Maqdi's hand up just briefly. Is that the purpose of what I presented today is that to show linguistically, right from the heart of the Mus'haf itself, is that this theory of hand amputation can be refuted. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. Maqdi, Sayyid Maqdi, please unmute your mic.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Sir, I have few confusions. In Surah Mulk, it is said that
which number of the surah? What's the number of the surah?
I don't remember. Surah Mulk.
No problem.
Surah Mulk, and I don't remember the ayah.
No problem.
The translation is that we have created inequality like that so that we can test the human beings, who does the right things and who does not. Okay,
that is verse 2, I believe.
No, that's not.
Verse 2,
which
67:2, I believe.
Okay.
He wants equality.
Okay, so you want to focus on this verse, right?
Yeah, when this gives me the impression that human beings are not created or given equal resources. So poor and rich people are there. So poor resort to stealing and he is punished. And that poverty is not because of the man himself. It is the society which has created circumstances where poverty prevails. So if can you make the resources equally available to everyone?
Sure.
Is it
in a
possible?
society? Yes.
No, but
Is it possible?
Sorry, brother, what is your question? Is this your question?
Question is that when we cannot make resources equally available to everyone, so that crime will prevail.
Okay, can I say a few comments?
Yeah, sure.
So thank you for your question, of course. Allah says in I'm looking at my iPhone, الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. I cannot, brother, sorry, I cannot make, by the way, can I close my presentation?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Yeah, at least I can go back to sharing. Anyways, I don't want to take. So my point is that let's read the verse that in question. الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. I cannot make the conclusion. I just don't find the connection between the conclusions that you made.
What I am saying,
yes,
what
please.
I am saying is that the society is composed of people who are not equal in all resources.
Fair enough.
Some
So
are
far,
poor,
so good.
some are poor, some are rich.
Mhm.
Poor, they resort to so many things to feed themselves or their families. Some work hard, some go to steal something, some cheat, some do frauds, things like that.
Sure.
So in order to stop them, one proposal is that we provide the resources equally to everyone so that he does not need to go to shop or somebody's house to steal something. My question is, if this is possible to make resources equally available to everyone, if it is possible, then we
I-
can stop the crime.
Sure, but my contention with your hypothesis is that I teach at the University of Waterloo, and Jeff Bezos has I don't know $160 billion, and obviously our incomes are not the same. I know my one of my uncles is living on a very menial retirement fund, and so I don't see any problem. That is not that it depends on many factors, because I want to connect it. I don't want to talk about predestination. We did cover this extensively in the past, but I want to talk about this concept of equality and so forth, and egalitarianism, and would that prevent theft or not? Brother, we all know. I mean, really, the data, which I call haqq al-yaqeen, shows that the poorest people are the ones who least to steal. This is data. This is fact. Okay, and the people who are so wealthy are the ones who are most to steal, and not just most to steal, but in terms of volume of how much theft they do, in terms of volume. So I'm sorry, I mean, I cannot find the validation to this, to your point. And I mean,
Okay, okay,
here's an example.
take it other way around. Can you create equality so that somebody does not steal? If rich people are stealing, then they should be punished.
But we're talking about something different, brother. I mean, we don't
That's
have this agreement.
economics.
We
Yeah.
we don't have this agreement on this. We're talking, I mean, the focus, I mean, it's up to Brother Mumtaz. We can go and talk about anything we wish.
No,
But
that is that's not relevant. That's economics. So economics mean that
yeah, yeah.
he actually means that if the system is wrong, that creates poor and rich,
Inequality.
then
But
poor is
brother,
stealing. So why he punished?
Brother
So that
Mumtaz, I
is,
think that's a relevant point. Thank you. And what I want to say is that there's something so powerful about the divine revelation, i.e., the Mus'haf.
yeah.
The most powerful about this, which tells me that this has come from a higher power, okay, not a man-made thing, is that there's no if and but about theft. There's no if and but. It's wrong.
No.
There's no society right now on this planet that look at theft as, okay, it's all right, it's okay, let it pass. Even though rationally, i.e. human-rational, because rationally we have to qualify it, okay? Human-rationally, sometimes I say, wait a minute, but you know the famous Robin Hood model,
Yeah,
that he
yeah.
would steal from the rich to give to the poor. But Allah came and tells us this is wrong, even if you know that he's scavenging the wealth of people. Theft is wrong. Now, if a poor man who steals, or a woman for that matter, and they go to the judge, and the judge hears their story, yes, that's where Brother Hamid, the comment comes into play. The judge has wisdom, and the judge look at things in a very contextual way, and say, you haven't had food for a while, and you stole, okay, this time, just be careful. Okay, absolutely. This is part of this broad system that we have in Islam. But is theft justifiable? No. Allah says it's a wrong thing. You know, for instance, I mean, we can extrapolate. We can extrapolate so many examples, and I'm compelled to steal. I'm compelled to kill. For instance, the story of the companion of Musa. You know, we cannot. We have to be cautious here. We cannot look at the previous people who lived thousands of years ago and the doctrines that were revealed to them as our doctrine, because at the time of Musa, maybe it was okay to kill someone. The human sanctity, the soul sanctity, was not maybe of a level that was worth protecting to the level that we have nowadays. So we cannot, so they used to kill. At the time, just quickly, at the time of Ibrahim, and I love this story, the time of Ibrahim. I'm trying to put things in context in the sense that there are laws beyond our rationality. Okay, let's not go to Ibrahim. That's a beautiful story. Everybody knows it, but maybe the messages need to be revisited. But you know, I want to share with you briefly, just very briefly, the story of the 4 people. This is a real story of the 4 people who drifted off the coast of South Africa from a sinking ship, and then when they had to die, so they killed one of them. They killed one of them to survive.
Yeah.
Commendable. Well,
No.
do the math. 4 to die or 3 to survive. Of course, the human rational mind would say no.
Logically, yeah.
3
Logically,
should,
3 to survive.
but when they arrived in the UK, England at that time, whatever it was called, when they arrived, they were tried and they were sent to prison. Okay, now they were following God's commandments, because no matter what, you know, look, Allah's math, Allah's rational thinking is different. The 4th should die rather than 3 survive.
Yeah, I got it. I got your
Okay.
point, and that was what the point I was making, that punishment is there for some reason.
Yeah.
We need not to look around, okay, how can we avoid that?
Yeah, that's it.
But it's
So,
not
okay.
sorry, but
Yeah.
one word, but it's not chopping hands.
It's not.
Yes, of course.
Hamid.
My argument is we are trying to implement one law of a Quran on a society. That law only be applicable if the Quranic society is available. You cannot implement a law where there is no Quranic society. Because what happens is, if you're not fulfilling the basic necessities of the citizens, you cannot punish them, because you actually punishment to the authorities then. You punish the authority because they haven't provided the basic necessity to the citizen that he's forced to steal. You see, there is a problem. The problem is not the punishment. Punishment only can be applicable of the Quranic punishment if the Quranic society is already established. If the people are not hungry, if the people are poor, if the people are stealing, and the government is also stealing, the government is also corrupt, taking all the money in like Egypt, like Pakistan, how the hell you can cut hands of a person who's hungry for days and not having a food? We cannot we cannot apply these laws. We have to be very careful. These laws only be applicable if you fulfill your requirement first, then the man will fulfill, the citizen fulfill his requirement.
Brother, you know, can I
Yeah.
just say one thing? Please, I have to interject, is that we have to parse things carefully here. Brother Hamid, what you're saying, I fully agree with it, but there's two different things we're talking about. You're talking about the leniency and the applicability of certain laws versus the laws themselves. So I am talking about the laws themselves. You're talking about the applicability, and these are two separate things. The second.
So basically, we cannot applicable. Let's say in Afghanistan, let's say they say we're gonna put a Sharia law. First of all Afghanis are under the poverty level. If they put, let's say, according to their understanding, if they put this law on that society, the whole world is gonna chop the Taliban, because this is not how fair for the people of Taliban who cannot have food, and you're cutting their hands. That's what my dilemma is.
No, but brother, we keep going back, but keep going back to the point that I'm trying to stress, and I gave this talk about, is that there's, to start with, I'm going into a different level. I'm saying, I fully agree with what you're saying, but I'm talking about a different level, is that there's no such thing as chopping hands. That's my point. And the second
agreed, 100% agreed with you.
And the second point, it has to be made here. I'm sorry, brother Ibrahim, just bear with me. The second point I want to make is that, and this might sound controversial to any, for me, anything outside the Quran and the Mus'haf is a fair game. That's my motto. Okay. Whatever Umar did in talking about the different aspect of the leniency, good or bad, I can analyze it as, I don't take it as a religion, you see, and this is, we have to be cautious. What Umar did, whatever has reached us about what Umar did is subject to analysis. That's all. Brother Ibrahim, sorry.
No, that is a history. It could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. I don't believe in those histories, because these are rawayat, and I can't take it seriously. But I'm giving you an example. If a situation arises in any country where you have a famine, you can make leniency about a law. So this way, not everybody gets punished for no reason. So the same reason I'm saying, yes, I agree with you 100%. That it doesn't mean to chop the hands. Even in the story of Yusuf, they cut their hands, but they put a little bit damage to them, or to put a stop on it, and start looking at him. So what I'm saying is, to putting a stop on certain act, yes, that is, and the Nikala, the God right away said it, Nikala.
Yeah.
So that means it explains itself. God is actually explaining himself, like, this is how you should do it, and because it should be based on hikmat and aziziyat.
So Dr. Omar, if you can explain in English the law, that will help everybody.
I have a question.
Let Brother Ibrahim, and then I'll talk about that, if you don't mind.
I just want to recap, what you have presented today, is that, to make sure I'm understanding. So what you're saying is that, okay, beginning as far as the expression of hand, first of all, that means in this particular situation, ability, not hands. Okay, and then and as far as the cutting off, is basically saying cutting off the ability of a person to commit theft, and that to me, that makes a lot of sense, because, for an example, where I'm from, where I grew up at anyway, there are thefts have been taken to the next level, for an example, with robbery and things like that. And I grew up among, real criminals, and the thing of it is that when people commit these particular crimes, they were able to commit them due to the fact that they had some type of ability that gave them the upper hand. For an example, a gun. When you rob people, people rob people that are unarmed. Armed people rob people that are unarmed. And the best way to minimize that would be to take away their ability to obtain guns or knives or whatever, you know. So that, or to remove them from the society, you know, to where they can't, you know, like harm people like that. So I get, you know, like the point that you have presented today. I mean, to me, that makes a lot of, you know, a lot more sense, rather than understanding, I guess, you know, the simple way of literally cutting the physical hand, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, that, you know, it was like really helpful, you know, in the
So,
way that you
yeah.
Thank
explained
you. Sorry, thank you, brother. Brother Mumtaz, you asked me for something.
Yeah, I asked you to explain the law in a simple English, so that implementation of law, that is different, that explained by Dr. Hamid, and the law actually,
Well, you know, Allah
is,
is, yes, Allah is, you know, Allah is giving us commands that are applicable to every time. I don't believe that twisting things to make them applicable with the times. That I just despise that notion. The laws are applicable, but we really need to understand what Allah is saying. That's all. That's having said that, when we want to understand, Allah is saying that sariqa wa sariqa, take them away. There's a punishment, but it is, he left it up to the society to administer that punishment, but he did indicate that they need to be taken away from society, distanced, or something like that. Okay, that's all. It's a very, you know, very simple, and it makes a lot of it makes a lot of sense.
So if I say Sariq, the thief, and the lady thief, separate them,
Separate
them
them,
away, pay him all their ability,
take their ability from the obviously from repeating this act. Now, taking their ability, you know, it could be sending them to a mountain resort. I don't know. It could
Nakala means separate place, prison.
Restraint. There's an element
restraint, to put a
restraint.
stop.
Yeah, there's an element of restraint. It doesn't mean torture. Doesn't.
No. Prison means prison.
This is common. This is modern Arabic. When they tell you "unakkilu bika," it means that I will torture you. But that's not what the Quran is saying. You see, so Allah left it very broad. And you know what? I mean, that's what all societies around the world. You know, when people think about the English common law, where did the English common law come from? You know, where did all the basic laws come from? That there is killing is wrong. Where did it come from? You know, theft is wrong, and there's a punishment for it. And where did this come from? I mean, this is
commandments.
This is a divine intervention. You know, I gave this example. You know, when those 3 people arrived in the UK at that time, they said, "Oh, you survived, great." You know, but we know it's wrong we know it's better to have 4 survive. Now, another example, I mean, that's why Allah put these broad things that are inherently in tune with the human nature. Another example is inheritance. You know, example is inheritance. One has God forbid, a paraplegic son and a very successful businessman or a woman, and he does not will to them anything special. Guess what? And only 2, by the way. Okay, let's make the math easy. Let's not get into the complex. Both are males. Okay, he has no mom, no dad, nothing, only 2. What will the inheritance? And he left behind $1 million. This will get $500,000. This will get $500,000. Okay. Now, I was listening to someone recently, and he said, no. Honestly, I'm not exaggerating. He said, no, what Allah is saying that we should intervene, okay? And the judge should intervene because there's a word of haqq somewhere, and make sure that the haqq is established. I was baffled, completely baffled when I heard this. You know, I mean, this is meta Quran. This is metaphysics. This is, you know, so my point and my struggle, not my struggle, my emphasis is not to tune Islam to be compatible with the times. You know, then Islam wasn't compatible with the times. That's it. Then it wasn't, right? Then I want to tune it. No, we don't want to understand it. We don't want to understand it. You know, when people tell you qatta'a means to exaggerate, what? I prove that is to be wrong. You know, no, qatta'a doesn't. You know, and in the case of Yusuf, yes, you know, it's not that we were told that the woman, you know, they had a knife.
And they cut their hands.
I'm gonna make a joke, you know. I tell that to my kids, and all of a sudden, Angelina Jolie, when she was, you know, young and all of that, she enters my room and I panic and I cut my hand. No, you know what I will say? Wow, what a beautiful person.
Yes.
You know, so most likely it's a custom that it's an old African custom where they marked. It's a marking, you know,
Right.
because she gave to each one a knife. Okay, it was a semi-trial. Anyways, my point.
So it's like a qatta sabil. You
Yeah,
put a
it has
stop
just
on a
small
road.
cuts.
Put a road,
Cuts.
a
Of
stop
course,
on a
of
road.
course.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
if you go back to the word, of course, it's mentioned.
Yeah.
قاطع الطريق.
Yeah,
قاطع
exactly.
الطريق doesn't mean he takes a knife and he cuts it. So this brings different dimensions, and it really points out to the precision of this book. And frankly, when you look at when you classify these verses, you say, what a man came up with all of, and this we're touching on just one tiny aspect. A man came up with this, you know, for those who say, you know, why do you believe? I believe based on certain things. I believe it's not that because my parents told me this is a book from God. We have to do this homework.
One question, Brother Umar. You mentioned about the inheritance. I just want to ask you, do you
There is an
really think
interruption in that.
about the law of inheritance in Quran? How do you define it? Because what you just mentioned, you divide the wealth according to what Quran says, to give half of the male and one of the female and one half of the male.
No.
No. One for the male and half of female.
No.
But that is not.
No.
Quran says you give the will first.
No, I didn't. Sorry, brother. I never said that. No. I said I simplified the example because it was tangential, but making a point. I said if a man had two boys,
right?
Exactly. No, as far as the للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين, you know what? I challenge people. I said, why don't you finish the verse?
Yeah, exactly.
They don't want to finish the verse. When you finish the verse, وإن كانت واحدة, look, وإن كانت واحدة فلها النصف. You see, I had a very fascinating argument with some people in Kashmir, with a lawyer. I was in Kashmir. And I said, brother, can you finish the verse? He did. Mm-hmm. I said, it says that if the man left behind a single girl, he told me if a single girl, she gets half. I said, what's the rest? Where would the rest go? You know what he said? The government. Okay, so if we follow till the end, وإن كانت واحدة, and there was one girl, one female, and there was one male, guess what? It gets split between them.
Right, but my concern was because in our societies, we do not believe in will. Quran says all these divisions is after your will. If I make a will that everything goes to my retarded son, then the rest will be divided this way. Or if I left something which I did not put a will on it, that will be divided according to this. But will, I can give it to the one. Let's say I have three people, my children. One is a doctor, one is an engineer, they're making $1 million. And one is in high school, still needs more money and more, right? So I'm dying. So I make a will that 75% goes to this and my wife, the 25 goes to the other. That should be the will. If I have I forgot something, let's say $500,000, that and did not put a will on, that will be divided according to that. Yeah. After the will,
Brother, this is, I mean, you're touching about something which is has huge implications. Major
I
implications.
agree.
Major implications. You see, women, I'm really surprised that our sisters fight on trivial things compared to the bigger thing. They're losing the bigger thing and they're fighting over very minor, well, minor is relative, okay? Nothing is minor. But when it comes to the will, you're absolutely right. Allah gave the person the priority. The will is the priority. The will is the priority. And this is a very, very, by the way, interesting thing, because Allah says kutiba. When it comes to the will, Allah uses kutiba. Now, he didn't use a command directly, okay? Just like not for the mu'minun, not to eat the dead animal. That was a direct command. He didn't say kutiba. But in this context, he said kutiba. Now, yeah, so that has to be analyzed. Maybe in a separate time we can talk about it, because it made me think. It made me really think.
It's very important, and it needs your full lecture.
Yeah,
it's like a kutiba alaykum as-siyam, kutiba alaykum al-qital. Yeah,
exactly. And when it kutiba alaykum as-siyam, I believe that it's a choice. It's not a command. It's a choice. Okay, and I stand by it. I can discuss it later on. But here. Kutiba khayran. Allah uses khayran al-wasiyata. Okay, why did he say khayran? Okay, my understanding, I stand to be correct, we can discuss it later on in great depth, is that it's a choice. It's a choice. Now, Allah gave the preference to the human to decide where his or her wealth is going to be dispersed. Allah gave them that first choice. Now, if the person did not exercise that choice, by default, Allah's will, so to speak, Allah's rules will take over. Now, if a person didn't take that, Allah is not going to reveal. This is my way of thinking how Allah operates. Allah operates. I'm not trying to use this example from the quantum behavior, because everything is quantum, right? Because everything boils down to these elements. So I can argue that everything is quantum, the building blocks at least. So if everything has a probabilistic feel to it, probabilistic description, then when it comes to inheritance, there must be a probabilistic description, meaning on the average, Allah's rules give you a balance on the average, not case by case basis. Because in this case, the example that we gave, and may Allah prevent anyone from having a diseased son, but this example that we gave, it doesn't make sense that the paraplegic will get $500,000 and the other one will get $500,000. It does not. But notice, the converse, the man, the one who died, or the woman, could have been a mean person. He or she could have given everything to the businessman and nothing to the paraplegic. You know, he could have, but that was his own money and he had the right to use it. See, this is, I think when Allah says, I created a Khalifa, I'm not saying that he created his Khalifa, not his replacement, okay?
On this earth.
Oh, yeah, on this earth, it means that Khalifa from Khalafa, someone who has some authority, and we have to respect that. But yes, now the last aspect as far as the inheritance, no, I think, you know, frankly, women got the bad end of the stick. I think women got, I can tell you horrible stories, horrible. Yeah. In my country of Palestine, and I think Milad is listening here, he can concur. When a man dies, the brothers invite the sisters and make a big dish for them and give them a gift or two and tell them to bag it. You know, shut up. Really, it happens till our day. Really, you know. Now, this is one thing. On the other hand, because the system, because we completely left this system, everything is upside down. In my family, in my relatives, a man, while he was alive, he wanted to leave things for his wife. Of course, it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, everybody wants to leave.
Yeah.
You know, they teamed up against him because if he gave his wealth to his wife, the classic inheritors will get nothing. It's sad. Anyways.
It's right. Yeah, it's the problem is we are trying to implement the laws on a society where the society is mostly secular. It's not Quranic society. So you cannot put a Quranic laws in a non-Quranic society. It
But
doesn't
brother,
make any.
But brother, I think it does make sense. I really think so. You know, with the famous Muhammad Abdo, when he went, I know this is a cliche and people have repeated it ad nauseum, and I tend to take it with a grain of salt, as they say. When Muhammad Abdo, the famous, he went
Egyptian.
When he lived at the turn of the century, at the end of the 1800s, early 1900s.
Right.
He went to Europe and he said, I saw Muslims, without Islam, and in our countries, he was referring to Egypt, I see Islam without Muslim.
Muslim.
You know, I mean, I'm here in Canada. I mean, Canada is much closer to the Quranic concepts than Afghanistan, than Saudi Arabia, than Jordan, than Palestine. You know, really, I see that.
No. What I'm saying is, at least they have system. United States has a system, a place. In third world countries, there is no system.
That's you know,
if there is no system, then people are suffering with
that's
poverty.
a different story. That's a different story.
So you can implement these laws in Afghanistan where everybody's under poverty level. You know, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Well, I would say we can't implement laws if we don't understand them correctly.
Exactly. That's true too. That's true.
You can't implement them in the right way. You know, it'll be a disaster.
Disaster.
Sir, I have one question. Sir, I have one last question.
Yeah.
My question is that when these rules were revealed, was there a Quranic society there?
It was established. Yes.
Yes.
No.
Prophet
Muhammad said that's I think that's a very good point. When I really, you know, this Allah is putting conditions. Allah is putting conditions until that have to be ripe and met before we start administering certain things. I don't see validation in it in the Mus'haf itself. For instance, the classic example that they use is that the transitioning, the so-called transitioning to the punishment of drinking alcohol. First of all, there's no punishment, none.
No punishment.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, what is this transitioning? I mean, if someone becomes a Muslim tomorrow, we'll tell him, okay, you have a grace period to drink and to womanize and all of that, because the argument is that, oh, he was used to it. I mean, come on, does that make sense? Doesn't make sense. So the prophet society, and we have to be frank, was very problematic. You know, Prophet Noah, who gave him trouble? The people around him, qawmahu, right? Where did I get this from? From the Quran. The people of Musa, Bani Israel, qawmahu, who gave him trouble? The people around him, right? Hud, Shu'aib, right? Isa, who gave Jesus trouble? The people around him, right? Do you think that Muhammad Rasulullah was an exception? Of course he wasn't. In fact, if you look carefully at the Quran, even the people of Badr were reprimanded in the Mus'haf, who we were taught that they're angels, that they're going straight to.
No.
So this concept that there was an ideal society, I don't see validation for it, number one. Number two, a lot of the verses that were revealed were talking about the mischief of the people around the prophet. So where's this idealism? Number three, the prophet's flesh was still warm after he died, and they started pickering. That's history.
Okay. It's not
in
the Quran.
No.
It's not in the Quran.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you more about history, which is very hard to invalidate.
I know,
That-
I understand.
is that-
History is.
I know, but no, I'm talking about these people. In 10, 20, 30 years, they butchered each other. They butchered each other. Now,
That's
we can't-
history. That's
of
history.
course. No, that is history, but that's not my point. My point
those
is
are
that
facts.
these are the people who were around the Prophet. The people around the Prophet, like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, a famous, Sahabi, he had a different version of the Quran.
No,
Right?
People around the Prophet, they were the most highest commanders. They were the most, if you look at the history, who commanded after that, I mean, he created those people within 23 years. And nobody has done that. What I'm saying is what's in the history, we don't take it seriously. What Quran tells us, we take it seriously.
Exactly, and that's what I started. That the crust of my
that
argument.
is-
Because
that should
who
be
wrote the history? I don't
No,
know.
no.
Who
And
wrote the
that's-
hadith? I
exactly.
don't know.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And that's what I said, that the Quran does not speak favorably of the people around the Prophet. That's all.
That's true. That's true.
That's great. So,
All right.
yeah. Now
I
I
think
think it's
that,
almost 2 hours. If there is any last question or comments, please come up.
Yeah, I would like to say this as far as, the Quran. If we look at like religion, religion has evolved throughout history. You had the Torah, you had the Injil and, the Quran, and probably in other parts of the world, you had other scriptures. I think that a lot of times when we talk about, or when Muslims in general talk about implementing the Quranic principles into like some form of government, I think one of the biggest problems with that, though, is that the idea is that most Muslims, when they say that, they have in their mind some ideas about implementing something from a 7th century model into today's, world. And, I don't think that is even the message of the Quran itself. I believe that the Quran, is a universal message, for all times. And I don't think that the 7th century is its starting point even. I think that over time, humanity has evolved, and we're still evolving, towards becoming better. I'm not saying we don't have problems today, but, like Dr. Omar said about the comment of one of the
Yeah,
people who
the
came.
point is
he
valid.
came
Yeah.
to- He came
Dr.
to
Omar
like, the
will
Western world and he saw
explain it.
Islam, but he didn't see Muslim. He came to the Muslim world. He saw Muslims and he didn't see Islam.
Right.
I think that is a proof of the idea that the Quran is a universal message, and that universal message has to be understood according to it by itself, not taking, like the historical, documentations or whatever, or
Right.
even the historical situations and thinking that, it is built on that or predicated on that. I think that we have to strive to understand the Quran as it is. And
Yes.
and we need to